Welcome to the Been There, Done That podcast, where we give our guests the opportunity to talk openly about their career, their ups and downs, and all things in between. You can follow the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and you can also watch it on YouTube. If you enjoyed the podcast, give us a like and a follow on our social media, which you can find in the link in the show notes. Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 22. This week, I'm joined by audio link with Aisling McCarthy. Ash is now a footballer playing for West Coast Eagles women's side and is also balancing her Gaelic career over in Ireland for her county side, Tipperary. Ash started her athletic journey from the age of 7 and has risen through the Gaelic system to start for her county side at the age of 17. We discussed how she got introduced to AFL, her draft story, and her move to Perth to play for West Coast. Ash is a fierce competitor who is relishing her role in the midfield while getting comfortable with the rules of the game. Thank you all, and I hope you enjoy the show. All right, we're live on the podcast. Thank you, Ash, for joining me. How are you this fine morning?
I'm great, thank you. How are you? Thanks a million for having me.
No, that's the pleasure's all mine. I'm very well. It's evening over here in Perth. Just had a busy day at work and now sitting down and excited to get stuck into this chat.
Yeah, me too. I suppose I'm 7 hours behind, so I'm just starting off my Friday. But glad to be able to chat to you today. That's
awesome. And also, I was saying to you just before, it's almost turning out that this is the unofficial West Coast podcast, because you're the fourth one on the podcast. I've had Kelly Gibson, Brianna Green, B. Devlin, and now your fine self. So you're in the STEAM company.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Flying the West Coast flag. You must be a major fan.
Oh, it's funny because I'm not even from Perth. I'm actually originally from Adelaide in South Australia. So coming over here, I was just starting on the podcast. I was like, oh, better get stuck into meeting some people. So just happened to be that there's been 4 West Coast Eagles players been talking to.
That's brilliant. They're all great people as well to have a chat with. So I'm sure you had very interesting conversations with all of them.
That is true. They're all very great. They're all very good chats. So to get started, what I'd like to kind of get to know you a little bit about yourself. Was it kind of when you got started, obviously you played Gaelic football from quite a young age. Was it through school or was it kind of like an outside type of like playing through a club, if that makes kind of sense?
I suppose growing up, I kind of had a normal enough pathway through sport. Would have been very sporty from a young age, so I probably tried my hand at a lot of different things between soccer and gymnastics. But the main sports over here probably are national sports, so Gaelic games, that being Gaelic football, and camogie as well, which is another sport with a stick. So that's kind of the 2 main sports I would have started off playing when I was quite young, like 6 or 7, and yeah, just the local GA club, really. That's where I headed down to. So Clare is my local town. That's who I've been playing for at club level all my life. So that's where it all started, really. And, I've made some of my best friends through there as well. But you mentioned school and stuff too. And yeah, definitely you play it in school too. But it's kind of the local club that's the grassroots where everything started and where you develop your skills and meet your friends and stuff like that. So I've been very lucky to grow up in Clare, and I've had a very successful team underage growing up as well, which kind of added to the enjoyment of it too, I guess.
Yeah, right. You're saying that you were there, you've been at that club all your life. Is it a kind of once you're there, you're there for life type thing? Like you become loyal to the club. You don't very rarely see people move to other clubs.
That's exactly it. I suppose Gaelic games is all about pride of place, and it's where you're from. So play with your town, your local GA club, your closest one. So you play with them, and then I suppose if you're good enough and honoured enough to be selected to play for your county, which is basically a bigger region. They take people from different clubs to play for that. So that would be kind of the elite AFL level, I suppose. And that's also where I'm from. So I'm from Tipperary, and no matter where I end up living in Ireland, you'll always drive back to play for Tipperary. Even Grace Kelly, who I play with in West Coast, they're from Mayo, which is in the west of Ireland, and they actually went to uni and worked in Dublin, which is the east. So about a 3-hour drive, and they would drive home 3 hours 3 times a week to represent Mayo. So it just shows it's all about loyalty, really. So when I changed teams from Western Bulldogs to West Coast, it was a big move because it's quite foreign for anyone in Gaelic football really to move club or county. So I did find it was a bit strange, but obviously it happens in loads of other sports like rugby, soccer, AFL. So but yeah, I think that's the unique thing about Gaelic football and camogie and hurling. So it's a bit different in that way.
Yeah. Was it as accessible with Gaelic football and that kind of sport so young? Was it accessible for all people, like male and women? Because it's only been recently the last kind of 5 to 10 years that AFL has kind of become a norm amongst the female population.
I definitely am comparing stories. Like, I'm 25, so like when I chat to other girls around my age on the West Coast team, they often didn't have that pathway growing up. They play with the boys, whereas I was lucky enough that there was accessibility for females, and there was girls teams in my local town, but I actually would have also played with the boys up as far as I was 12, and that was just more just to play a bit more. I think that often I'm a better player because of it. Just developing my skills at such a young age and challenging myself against the boys. But yeah, I was lucky enough that I had that pathway all up through my teens and had those kind of role models to look up to. I suppose Gaelic football, I at that elite level, at adult level, I had people that I could look up to. And I always remember this one time, there's like mini games, so you play at halftime of the adult games.
Oh, yeah.
And I was up in Croke Park, which is our main stadium here in Ireland, up in Dublin. And I was playing at halftime when I was 12 of our adult team, Tipperary. So I always look back at moments like that and realize that I was very lucky to have role models and to have days like that where I remember looking up to those older girls wanting to be them. So I think in that instance, Gaelic football is probably was a little bit further on than I suppose AFL when I compare it to girls. But I think, they're doing a great job now in Australia, and like there's a real big emphasis on grassroots and having that pathway, and having the AFLW competition as well, is just making it more accessible and visible as well for young girls to be able to be whatever they want to be, if that's playing AFL or not.
That's very true. Do you look back when you were younger? Was there a kind of a key moment that kind of stood out to you that you like, that you kind of, there was like a switch that kind of flicked and you're like, oh, I could actually go and play a high level Gaelic, or was you kind of just naturally kind of progressed through the rankings and all of a sudden you were there?
I suppose it's a bit of both. I was lucky enough to be selected on Tipperary underage teams growing up. So like under 14, under 16 and under 18. So I suppose when I was playing them and having a good impact at those age groups, when it got to about 16 or 17, then I was doing well at club level for my for care, and that's when I got called into the adult team. So I first got the call up when I was 16, and that's probably when I realized that I'm involved in the highest level that I can possibly be in my sport. And I probably didn't think too much of it back then, but looking back, I was involved from such a young age that I think I started to learn a lot about being in an elite environment, and obviously wanting then to play for Tip. So I got to play that year as well. Obviously it was probably more on the fringes as a young player, but it was great for my development, and I think kind of made me grow as a player. And I kind of look back now and realize I was lucky to be in such a setup at a young age. But I think that's kind of a normal progression really as well. A lot of girls would get called in around the 17 age mark.
Yeah. So you were 16 playing against adult women, I guess?
Yeah, I was 16. I think it was against Waterford that I made my debut, so another county team that year. And like I obviously turned 17 that year, so towards the end of the year I was 17. But there would have been a few other people in the same boat as me. And even on the team that I play on now with Tipperary, like we do have some 17, 18-year-old girls that are exceptionally talented and a really important part of our team. So obviously it's getting a little bit tougher. There's been developments in strength and conditioning and gym and all that. So people are bigger and stronger. But obviously, a lot of the 16, 17, 18-year-olds coming in now have gym programs under their belt too. So they're well able to make the step up to the mark. Yeah.
Yeah. How has your kind of growth through that area kind of transformed through the years? Because obviously I imagine that when you were younger, when you were their age, you didn't have that kind of accessibility in the gym or didn't have that knowledge of strength and conditioning.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just come on leaps and bounds in the last few years. The first time I probably lifted a weight that much was when I was about 18 or 19 when I actually headed to uni. And I played on a team there. And
Oh, goodness.
obviously
Yeah.
that was the first time I really got into strength and conditioning. Probably just would have done, some body weight and core exercises before that. Didn't know too much about the gym. So yeah, I think it's definitely developed a lot. Like we have those young girls I was talking about on our team and they're doing the gym programs the same as us. But obviously, you have to get taught the proper technique and everything too. So it does take time to develop and introduce yourself to that side of it. But I think it's become a really big part of the game just for injury prevention as well. I'm a physio, so obviously through uni then I started to understand the importance of strength and conditioning for injury prevention.
Yes.
So I think there is a big emphasis on it. And obviously in both Gaelic games and AFL, there's been a lot of research, especially in ACL injuries. So I think, it's taken really serious, and not only just to be fitter and stronger, but just to prolong your playing career and ensure that you can be ready for selection as much as possible and not be hindered by injuries.
Mm. Did you, it's going to be quite a simple kind of answer from you, but did you feel the kind of difference or do you remember the difference of when you used to play and you didn't have that strength and conditioning base underneath you, and then to now when you first started kind of doing that, your prehab exercises to make sure, injury prevention exercises to make sure they weren't getting injured? Do you remember what the difference between the two kind of playing bodies were like?
To be honest, like when I was growing up, I suppose you're kind of as fit as a fiddle, nothing phases you, and you're probably nearly able to play a few matches in a week, and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and you don't really think too much about it. Whereas, I'm 25 now, and I think there's a huge emphasis on my recovery, my strength and conditioning and stuff like that, just to be able to prime myself to go again the week after. So I think as you get older, it definitely is a bit more important. But yeah, I suppose it's just been kind of a natural progression. But I feel like there's a big need for it at the minute. Like if I wasn't in the gym and stuff, I definitely wouldn't be as strong as the player beside me to win a football. And especially at AFL, it's a very physical game. So, you need to be on top of your strength and your power, especially in the role I play in the midfield. I need to be hunting the football, and I'm not going to be able to get the football if I'm not as strong as the player beside me. So I do think it's very transferable to the pitch as well.
Oh, definitely, that's for sure. Who kind of introduced you to AFL and how did you kind of get down that pathway?
Yeah, like it was nothing I ever dreamed of as a little kid or anything like that. But I suppose the first Irish Gaelic football female player to play was Cora Staunton
Yep.
in 2017. So she definitely would have turned the heads of a lot of Gaelic footballers. And there was a documentary here about her path into the AFL, and like she seemed to get on really well. So I think that kind of opened up I suppose this pathway for other Gaelic footballers, and you've seen male players dominate as well, in the AFL sides. So Cross Coders is an agency that basically set up a trial in Melbourne in 2018. So I got a message from them that summer on Instagram asking would I be interested in putting my name forward for an AFL trial and just to send on footage of me playing Gaelic football. So at first, to be honest, I kind of let it settle in my inbox for a little while. I thought it was maybe a bit of a scam. Didn't really think too much about it. And then I kind of got home chatting with my parents. They're like, what have you to lose? So, I obviously responded to them, sent on videos and stuff. And then come August of that year, got an email basically saying you're invited to a trial in Melbourne in September. So headed out the week of the grand final in 2018 to Melbourne. So it was a brilliant time even to get out to Australia and be immersed in like the AFL environment. We got to see the parade and everything like that. So it was brilliant time to be there. And then we just did some trials. I suppose kind of that combine testing, the agility, the jumps, the 2K time trial and stuff like that. And then we played a game against VFL players.
Oh yeah.
And we did really well. So that's when I think it turned the heads of the recruiters in the different clubs. So I think there was 2 rookie spots left up for grabs that week. And so Yvonne Bonner went up to Sydney, and Ailish Constantine ended up getting signed by Adelaide Crows. So for the rest of us, it was potentially going to the draft. But I had a few conversations with different clubs. So I said I just put my name in the hat, and I nominated for the draft. And yeah, Western Bulldogs just selected me in October that year. And next minute I was on a flight back out to Melbourne to start my journey as an AFLW player. But yeah, before that summer, it's not really something that I would have really thought about. But I'm glad I kind of took the opportunity and, getting to move to a different country, experience different culture as well in Australia, as well as challenge myself as a professional environment, in a professional environment and in a new sport. I'm very competitive. So it's enabled me to grow definitely as a person and as an athlete. So it's an opportunity I'm really glad that I took. And I think the journey then after that just kept evolving, and now I'm settled in Perth with West Coast, and I love that team, and it's somewhere I feel like I'm going to be for a long time. So hopefully now we can be a bit more successful this year, and I'm looking forward to heading back out, meeting the girls again, and starting pre-season.
And it's crazy how it all started from an email, and then you kind of thought it was a scam. Can you imagine if you didn't ever responded back?
I know, yeah. And I didn't know anything about it. And obviously I didn't really tell too many people because I didn't know what was happening. But when I actually was in Dublin Airport, I knew 2 other girls. They're from different parts of Ireland, but would have played against them in Gaelic football. So it was nice to have a few familiar faces heading out on the plane. But it was a great experience even just to get out for that week in Melbourne. I'd never been to Australia, and I have family and stuff out there. So
cool.
It was nice to be able to visit. But yeah, it's somewhere now that I call home for 6 months of the year. So yeah, I love it.
Oh, you're one of the lucky ones. Is there much, I guess, what was the kind of chat around your Irish girls? Like, did you think what was the kind of chat like? Do you think much about like actually playing AFLW, or was it kind of just a bit of a fun kind of get down to Australia, kind of experience it all, I guess?
I suppose with the trial, it was probably just head out, experience it, see what it's like. But then as it got a bit more serious, I think that's when I was kind of like, you know what, I do think I actually want this opportunity. And that's obviously why I nominated for the draft. So, the draft was a bit nerve wracking as well. I did no one could obviously promise you they're going to select you. So yeah, I didn't really know whether I would be taken or not. So yeah, it was a bit surreal. I don't really have those. I saw those videos this year of a lot of the draftees getting selected, and all their family having a party. Whereas I think I was tucked up in bed at like 3 o'clock in the morning, just watching it on my phone. And when I got selected, I just ran into my mom and dad and my sister. So it was a bit surreal in that sense. But yeah, wow. I didn't want to get carried away. Obviously, being disappointed if I didn't get selected because I didn't really know. But I'm very glad that Western Bulldogs took, I suppose, a chance on me. Someone that hasn't played the sport before. It was probably a big kind of roll of the dice for them. But I'm very glad that they took the opportunity and started my journey in AFLW.
It's very interesting as well how much of the sport of Gaelic and how much AFL, like there's similarities within it, that there's the athleticism that you both need to require as well. And I think I was talking to someone the other day as well about using the round ball and having to kick the round ball is very similar to how when you use for football is like you kick around the body, like your bananas, your check side kicks. And it was almost, I was saying to someone a couple of weeks ago, when the international rules series was up and about and people kind of started to get in and watch and see how they kick it, it was almost the evolution of goal kick, goal scoring, like Eddie Betts, like kick around the bodies and all that sort of stuff really took off because people were kind of drawing similarities of how do you kick the round ball and how you could utilize that skill to the AFL football.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose the bananas and check side and all that, it takes a little bit of time to get used to with the oval ball, but that's definitely how we kick the round ball over here. It's just a bit more accurate, I suppose, to be doing the around the corner kick than a punt kick. There's a lot of room for error when you do a straight on kick. It'll obviously go off the side of your foot and stuff like that. So often we just use the instep of our foot, which then transfers into those style kicks. But the punt kick and stuff does take a little bit of time to get used to. But I think, with the coaches and everything in the AFL clubs and the accessibility you have to coaches, like at the start, I was nearly having the ball in my hand every day and you kind of just get used to it. And now it comes second nature. But definitely at the start, the rules, the skills, everything was a bit overwhelming. But now I can kind of go out with a bit more freedom and not have to worry about all that. It becomes a bit more second nature. And, I've played 3 seasons now. So going into my 4th season, I'm constantly wanting to improve, but it's nice not having to kind of think about the rules and like second guess yourself really. And I think the flair and the kind of I suppose unpredictability that the Irish players bring is something that the clubs actually want you to like bring to the game. They don't want to change you as a player, and that's the same with all players across the competition. They want you to play to your strengths. So I think that kind of unpredictability playing on or like kicking around the corner and stuff like that is something that like West Coast definitely want myself and even Grace to bring to the table and just play to our strengths.
It's interesting you say unpredictability because that's the whole exactly the whole point, because you can kind of draw on similarities that you see in the Gaelic game and you can kind of exploit it in the AFL game.
Yeah, definitely. And like even just playing on, sometimes it might be by accident, but a lot of the time, like we're stopping for marks when like, we might see 2 or 3 kicks down the line. Maybe you actually went a bit faster, like you get the ball there quicker, like not allowing the team to set up their defense and stuff. So I suppose Neve Grace are more outside players. They utilize their speed. I'm a bit of a hunter. I'm competitive, and I think playing in the midfield brings that kind of competitive streak out in me. So I'm kind of the player trying to get it out to them. But I relish the challenge, and I obviously play against some of the best players in the competition in the midfield. So week in, week out, I don't put too much pressure on myself, and I relish the challenge of coming up against some of the best players in the league.
What was the kind of biggest challenge learning the game?
Well, I'll tell you a story. My first couple of trainings, we were at Western Bulldogs, and I think I'd missed a couple of weeks of pre-season because I had to wait for my visa to get through after the draft. So kind of was straight into it, was a bit of match simulation, and they kept stopping the game and like doing the ball ups. And I was just like, why aren't they playing on? Because like obviously in Gaelic football, unless like there's a free against you, like it's just kind of continuous play.
Yeah.
So obviously people were just getting caught in tackles or whatever and didn't have prior opportunities. So they're turning into ball ups. And I just turned around and I was like, why do you keep stopping the game? And then Paul Groves, the coach at the time, just turned around to me and goes, oh God, we have a lot of work to do. We need to go for coffee during the week. And he gave me a rule book and just try to go through the game. Like, so I literally started from like scratch, like not even knowing the simplest of rules. Like obviously knew mark, like the safety of tackles, like stuff like the kind of real basics. But then all of the other stuff that you have to think about, like I hadn't a clue. So I think I learned though through like making mistakes and through games and stuff with training. So like it became, every week I was learning something new. And that first year was the most difficult, just learning the rules. But now I kind of know it all, and like not all of it obviously, but I'm constantly learning. But that's something that I kind of can put to the back of my mind. Whereas the first year was probably to the forefront, where I was like, what am I making a mistake? Am I, is there a rule here that I'm breaking or whatever? But now that's something that I don't really have to think of too much.
I guess that would be so hard to kind of go out and play with your freedom and your flair when you've kind of second guessing yourself on what the rules are.
Yeah, definitely. And then I think, the more I played in training, I did kind of learn just to go with my instinct.
Mm,
Often it was right. You just had to back yourself and like, look, if it wasn't, it was a mistake and you'd learn from it. But I remember actually in my debut against Geelong, I scored a goal, and to be honest, the ball fell to my feet and I played on, but the whistle blew and I turned around and I was like, oh, I'm after giving away a 50-meter penalty, obviously, for like kicking the ball away.
yeah.
And then everyone just surrounded me and was like, you just scored a goal. And I was just like, so I didn't actually know what I did for a second, because like I kind of just instinctually played on. But then when I heard the whistle, I was
You
like,
thought it go
oh,
away.
like it's a free. Yeah. And I was like, 50-meter penalty the other way. I was like, really? And then, yeah, it was actually, I scored a goal. So I kind of did play on instinct and just was going to learn from the mistakes after. But then sometimes I didn't really know whether I was doing the right or wrong thing at all.
Oh, that's funny. That's and obviously you moved to Melbourne, which is probably one of the biggest cities in Australia. Was there much of a culture shock?
Yeah, like obviously, I'd lived for uni in a small enough city here, Limerick. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was very different. I was lucky enough that my mom's brother, so my uncle and his family and my cousins lived out in Melbourne as well. So, I did have a few familiar faces on the other side of the world that I could
That's for
catch
sure.
up with. But yeah, like it was daunting. And in that year, there was only five AFLW, Irish AFLW players. So there was myself and Sarah Rowe from Collingwood,
Oh, yeah.
based in Melbourne. So look, we did kind of lean on each other a bit. We definitely meet up every week or every couple of weeks, and it was nice to have someone in a similar situation. But I think I took the opportunity with open arms, and obviously getting to experience a different country and a different city was something that I was obviously going to try and enjoy. And I was only going to be out there for the season, which is about 6 months. So I didn't really get homesick in that instance, because I knew I was only going to
Yeah.
be there for kind of a short period of time and I was going to head home to my family. So I was making the most of it. And I really did enjoy it. I've met great people along the way, both in Melbourne and in Perth.
That's for sure. What was your number one activity to do outside of football in Melbourne?
Go for coffee,
Yeah.
definitely.
That's
Yeah.
everyone. That's what everyone
Um,
says about Melbourne. Go for coffee.
yeah, the food and coffee, definitely. And Perth isn't too far behind it in that way. But I think the beaches in Perth definitely
Oh, for sure.
trump the beaches in Melbourne. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm loving that life
What's
in
your
Perth at the minute.
What was your favorite coffee spot in Melbourne? Did you have one?
So I kind of lived in Newport my first year. So there was just a local cafe
Ah,
there.
okay.
But yeah, we would have went to different ones just around the city as well, that like, when you look up, they would have been like been told that you should go to them or whatever. But yeah, I feel like anywhere you went to Melbourne had nice coffee.
Mm,
So
yeah,
yeah, it definitely beats the coffee in Ireland. So
that's for
I think
sure.
anything was yeah, good for me.
Well, I'd even say that most places here in Perth don't even come close to the places in Melbourne. Coffee over there
Yeah,
is
and then
great.
Perth is better than Ireland. So yeah.
So how did so you played it was 2 seasons at Western Bulldogs, is that correct?
Yeah, two
Yeah.
seasons with Western Bulldogs,
And
and
then
then
how did
just the
it
season just gone with.
So how did you get a call up from someone at West Coast asking if you're available to come down, or how did that conversation come up?
Yeah, to be honest, it was probably Adam Selwood. I had a few conversations with him. I think, last year, the season, my final season with Western Bulldogs, when we played West Coast, I actually stayed for an extra night in Perth with Neve and Grace just to see the
Oh, yeah.
place.
Yep.
And they brought me out to Rottnest and
Oh,
saw Scarborough and stuff like that. So I think they did their work early as well. I love the
did
place.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see
Uh,
the little hockers at Rottnest?
yeah, I did. Yeah, I got very sunburnt now. Cycling around for the day, but yeah, I loved it. So I think then when Adam started chatting to me after the season, I obviously loved Perth as a place, and then just the vision that they had as a club going forward, and the goals they have. And I think as well how Neve and Grace spoke about the club and what they did for international players. Like, it's obviously not easy bringing someone over from Ireland. There's a lot of extra work upon the club, like organizing stuff and all the logistics that come with it. So I think they just did a super job as well to make Neve and Grace feel at home. So I think just for my own football, and then also just being able to have that ease of a transition from Ireland to Australia, I think that just the move was important for me. And then on top of that, I'm obviously also a physio, and I have to put that profession to the side when I'm in Australia, just because of visa restrictions as well. And obviously, I want to focus on being a professional athlete too. But they've enabled me to do some like shadowing and working with West Coast Health, like just unofficial chat. Yeah. So I'm able to kind of keep up my physio career, my skills and stuff like that, and just my learning. Even if it's just a day a week when I'm in Perth. So that's kind of been a factor as well that I have to factor in, because I'm not going to have sport forever, and I need to obviously keep up my physio side of things, because that's obviously what I'll go back to when sport finishes. So there's kind of multiple reasons why I made the move, but it was a tough one, and obviously loyalty is a big thing of mine. So it was really tough telling the girls and telling the club, and obviously they're the ones that gave me the chance in AFLW. So I am very grateful for them. But I think, as an athlete and as a person, I think it was the best thing, and I have no regrets, and I'm really enjoying my time with West Coast.
That's for sure. Do you find it hard sometimes being a qualified physio and all that goes along with it, and being a professional athlete? Sometimes you blur your lines. Sometimes you might pull up sore, for example. You might think in your head, oh my gosh, my hammy, I need to do more prehab, or I need to do more of this exercise or something, rather than you kind of get you have anxiety almost?
To be honest, no, I'm quite good at separating them, and I don't really apply what I should to myself. I often tell people, do what I say and not what I do. So, I think, you do but then at the same time, when I am a bit sore, I kind of know that it's potentially just my load and stuff. And I just need to do a bit of extra recovery. So I'm kind of okay in that sense, or I can start, if I do think I have a sore hamstring, I can start a bit of early rehab before I actually get assessed by someone and stuff. So there is kind of, I suppose, advantages, but I know what you mean. Like, you could be getting in your head a little bit. But I think I do try to separate them quite a bit, but it's nice to have that outlet as well, and have something away from sport, which I found really important, especially being out in Australia, because you're so immersed, I suppose, in your whole world is playing AFL. I feel that it's really important that you have to strike that balance. And that's something I've definitely learned across my 3 seasons out in Australia, that you need to have other things to focus on outside of sport, or else it can get too overwhelming and you can put a lot of pressure on yourself.
That's for sure. That's definitely true. You said earlier, just before, about recovery. What kind of your go-to kind of recovery modalities?
Well, I think sleep is obviously a big thing. So trying to get your sleep and nutrition, and obviously they're kind of 2 basics that you can tick off. And we have great resources available at the club, like in our dietitian and our wellbeing team as well, to help with all that. And then obviously different physical things. So just like even heading off to the beach with a few of the girls, going for a bit of a swim. We have a swimming pool and ice baths and all that in the club. So just utilizing everything that we have at our doorstep. I think that's something, that's really important. We have so much available to us, and it's just about using it. And then I think, keeping fresh, as I just said about striking the balance, going off, meeting my friends, doing stuff outside of AFL, not constantly thinking of football, is really important, just to keep your mind fresh as well as your body. So I think, I kind of been pretty good this year to strike that balance of, having fun with my friends and doing different things, as well as like getting my recovery in and stuff like that. So I think, the environment that I live in, the summer in Perth, it's easy to head off to the beach and go for a dip. Whereas at the moment, I need to actually get a bit of recovery in today, and it's pretty cold and miserable out. So I don't think it's the beach I'll be heading to do my recovery today.
No. Hey, do you get in the ice baths much? Do you know how cold they are?
Don't know how cold they are. We have two different ice baths in the club. So one is a bit colder than the other, and then we have like a spa, so warm water, and then a swimming pool as well. So usually do a bit of both. Go ice baths, might swim a couple of lengths of the pool just to relieve the muscles a little bit, and then head into the spa to warm myself up afterwards. So yeah, we have a fairly nice setup. We're very lucky.
You haven't done what's the longest you've ever sat in the ice bath for?
When we get chatting with the girls, time goes fairly quickly. So you could be in there 15 minutes unknown to yourself, but try staying just about 8 minutes. That's kind of what I'd aim for. But often when you get chatting, the time goes quite quickly and you come out and you're absolutely frozen. But only like a few minutes really. It can get quite cold.
I don't know. I remember reading somewhere, I'm not 100% sure on the science behind it, but every time I do have an ice bath, say I might do one on a Sunday after I train, and then in the late afternoon I'll do train, and then I'll ice bath, and then I'll come home. I always have the best night's sleep that Sunday night of the week. I'm not sure if it's because it's a Sunday and I'm relaxed because I just trained, or if it's the ice bath, but I remember reading somewhere that ice baths are good for your sleep as well for some reason. But that would be...
Yeah, I don't know. That's actually very interesting.
Because it's all the same, because ice bath for recovery and then getting a good night's sleep, you almost got double whammy.
Yeah, you're ticking 2 boxes there. So that's very interesting. I know there's a lot of research coming out as well. Like sea swimming is a big thing here, even during the winter. So I think immersing yourself in cold water is even good for your mental health and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting. I don't really know the research. I haven't looked it up myself, but I just kind of tick a few boxes and make sure I'm recovering well, because you need to go out to the next training session and be able to perform again. So just trying to do everything to make my body right.
Was there much of a difference between the training standards of, I guess, AFLW program from Bulldogs and the Eagles to what it was like over in Ireland training there?
No, that's something like not at all. I suppose we're amateur, but we have to train at those professional standards. The only difference is that I don't have all of the facilities that I had at West Coast and Western Bulldogs. You know, I have everything at my doorstep when I'm in Australia, whereas here, I pay for my own gym membership. If I want to go to a swim pool today, I'm paying to get in and do that myself, just at my local swimming club and stuff. So it's all the same principles. Like our standards of training are the exact same. But it's just we do more of our pitch sessions collectively. So I suppose we're out 3 or 4 nights here doing our pitch sessions, so our on-field training sessions. But then we're obviously overseen by a strength and conditioning coach, but I'm actually going to the gym and do my gym program in my own time. In my own gym, if that makes sense. Because I work, as a physio, other girls could be in university, and we all have different demands outside of football, and it is only amateur. So to kind of enforce other, I suppose, structured hours on players would be a bit unfair. We obviously have other lives to live outside that, whereas I think, with West Coast and Western Bulldogs, you're signed up to a contract, you have to give a certain amount of hours anyway. So obviously that can all be allocated in to that time. Whereas here, I suppose we've a lot more outside things to worry about. So you kind of have to fit it into your own schedule. But the same principles, I suppose, sports science, strength, conditioning, and all that are pretty much the same. But it's just the time and resources are the only different thing.
So that obviously wasn't so much of a eye opener, I guess, to someone who's younger, coming up from a junior AFLW program, and then stepping up into an AFL program and having to expect so many different kind of training sessions. You kind of already had an awareness, I guess, of what it was going to be like.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of it's a seamless transition for a lot of the Irish girls, and we come from those elite environments, and it's not really a big step up or anything like that. And if anything, our eyes are open to just how everything's at our doorstep, and we're so grateful for that. So you're just trying to utilize everything that you have available to you. Whereas here in Tipperary, we have the same ideas and principles and what we want to do and what we have to do across the week. But it's just I have to find my own time and my own facilities, I suppose, to do some of that work. But yeah, it's basically the same training demands and similar load and stuff like that. So it's not a huge step up or a big difference on the body. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's interesting. Obviously, there's probably another big key difference as well is in the time of or the season or the type of time of year that you're playing in. Did you have much of a struggle? Did you struggle much playing in the heat of the summer here in Australia?
Yeah, and this year probably was the biggest struggle, to be honest. No one told me when I was moving to Perth, how different it'd be to Melbourne, how hot it would be. So, yeah, I suppose I was lucky enough to base in Melbourne for the first couple of seasons. We had hot days, but just with the way the AFLW program is structured, a lot of times we train in the evenings. So it was it was a lot cooler than in the middle of the day. But the first game this year, round one at West Coast against Adelaide, was 37 degrees.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, I found that I was in a bad way after that game. I think I was just so dehydrated and everything. No matter what I did, ice towels, salts, everything during the game. But I think it was just a whole new level that it got to play in. So I don't think I had experienced that across my time with Western Bulldogs. So that was a major difference. I definitely struggled, but you do acclimatize in a way. But I think, even the Australian girls found that day tough. So yeah, I don't know if you'll ever get used to 37-degree days and playing at 2:00 in the day in the middle of it.
No. And even this year as well, because the season's being brought forward, might be even, or I guess you're going to be, pre-season is going to be in the hit as well. So you might have a bit more of an acclimatization effect. But goodness, playing AFL in 37 degrees is tough on anybody.
Yeah, I felt like I was just sizzling at the field.
You would have had to have gone through a lot of sunscreen, I imagine.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I don't even like to step outside when it gets that hot because I'm just as pale. So just trying to avoid the sun.
Yeah, I don't really have the skin. I'm not that tanned or anything. So yeah, I burn quite easily.
So outside of the physio when you're here in Perth and you've got the day of physio that you can go and shadow, what else do you like to do in Perth? Like obviously there's beaches, but is there much else? Like do you go watch other sport? Do you do anything else outside of that?
Yeah, so got to go to like a couple of cricket games this year.
Yes.
Went to Perth Wildcats basketball. I went to a first netball game as well. West Coast Fever. So like I know Melbourne is probably the sporting kind of city of Australia, but there's definitely a lot of sport as well in Perth. So I've been able to see sports that I actually wouldn't really go to in Ireland or see in Ireland at all. Obviously I just go to mostly Gaelic games over here. So it was nice to be able to kind of see different sports. And then I say that obviously it's in the middle of the summer. So, a few of the girls have had barbecues, just even going to the different parks around the city, the different beaches. And then we've gone on a few road trips as well. Obviously, we might have a couple of days between trainings and stuff. So headed up to Lancelin, down to Denmark as well.
Yeah.
Albany. So I've seen a bit of WA, but it's so big. I have a list of
massive.
places that I need to see. Yeah. So hopefully I'll get to do a bit more travel next year around WA. So and then like just help out as well with school programs. I suppose Hooks and a program in schools just for girls, like teaching them about high performance, sport, nutrition, all that kind of stuff. So I've been to a couple of school visits with her as well, just to help out. And that's been nice just to fill time and get to meet people and I suppose help with the grassroots too across WA. So I've definitely been able to keep busy, and it's nice as well to have downtime as well and just relax a bit and recover for training. But there's definitely a lot of adventures in WA that I need to still do.
That's for sure. Being a part of, you've done so much in women's sport. Do you feel like there's an obligation, or you do feel obligated to give back to the younger women, like through that school program at all?
And I think it's really important to have that visibility of sport, and women in sport especially, and just giving girls, I suppose, role models, I guess you could call it, or just someone that they can look up to, that they can also say, I could be that. So obviously if you can't see it, you can't be it. And that's definitely something I've learned for the last years as well in Ireland, with the visibility of ladies football going through the roof as well. I think it's really important to give back to the clubs. I've got so much personally from sport, obviously through Gaelic football and that as well, my friends, and then being able to play AFLW and go to Australia. I've got a lot from sports. I feel like it is an obligation of mine to give back and definitely help with the rise of both Gaelic football and AFLW. And it's something I enjoy as well, getting out and meeting girls that are very passionate about sport and where they want to go in it as well. So I think it's just refreshing to get out and meet people, and you kind of look back and you were once them, I suppose. So it's nice to get taken back to those days too.
Yeah, that's interesting. You how you kind of refer back to when you were younger. Was there anything like that for you when you were younger?
Definitely not as big, I suppose.
Yeah.
Over here, we've an Irish channel, TG Carr, and they've been great to sponsor ladies football. So they show all our games basically on TV over here, which is brilliant. So that when I was younger, there was games on TG Carr, but now there's way more. And then Little, which is a multinational company, has basically come on board as sponsored as well. And they've really driven the visibility of ladies football over here. So there's definitely way more of it, but I did have those palpable role models in that time that I played in the halftime game in Croke Park that time. Like I looked up to girls that were playing for Tipperary back then, and I did have those role models, and they were like from locally as well. Like I'd meet them, maybe I'd see them when I'm down in the shopping with my family and stuff like that. So it did feel like I possibly could be one of them. So that was nice. But I know for a lot of young girls, both in Ireland and Australia, they didn't really have people that they could look up to. So I do think it's important to continue the rise in like media coverage and visibility and stuff like that. So, but I think it's going in the right direction, but there's definitely still a big difference between men's and women's still.
For sure, but it definitely is it is very important, I guess, for everyone, not just women, to have for everyone to have visibility for sports, whether it's female role models or male role models as well, because it's just people who are doing good things. You don't want to have a role model who's someone who's looking up to someone who's a poor representation of what it's like to be in the community. So it's very important to have someone to look up to who's succeeding.
Yeah, succeeding on the pitch, but also I suppose, as a good person off the pitch as well is really important. And I think, in AFLW, like all of the girls are great advocates for women in sport, and they're great role models. Even I look up to the likes of Erin Phillips and Brie Davey and stuff as players on the pitch, but also how they carry themselves off the pitch as well has been super. And they're elite in their sport, and they're definitely people that I look up to kind of try and mirror my game off, but also I suppose their way off the pitch as well is really good, and they're brilliant role models for young girls to look up to too.
It's very interesting because when you do have like a role model, I think even Greeny said, Brianna Green said it when her favorite player was Ben Cousins, and when she lived in Melbourne, and when the whole drama around Ben Cousins kind of came about, his controversies, and he was her favorite player. She kind of felt like upset, and people would make fun of the fact that she was wearing West Coast Eagles, not like Ben Cousins Guernsey, and like it's that old kind of drama outside that can play on like a little person, like a little kid, and when you have a role model who isn't a kind of community standard, is kind of disappointing for the younger person as well.
I suppose that can be disappointing, definitely. And obviously when you invest so much in role models, like you just think you're a superhero, really. Yes. So obviously if there is kind of controversies and stuff that go with them, it can be a bit disappointing and feel like you're let down, especially as a young kid. You invest a lot in, your role models, and that's who you want to be when you grow up. So yeah, I guess things like that can be upsetting for young kids. But I think at the moment, luckily, there isn't too much controversy around the game or any AFL players or AFLW players. So I think young girls and boys are lucky. In today's world, they have a lot of people they can look up to that carry themselves well on and off the field.
So you've obviously had a very extensive playing career. Do you have any pre-game rituals or routines that you've done both in Gaelic scene and in the AFL?
Not really. I'm not too structured in that way. And obviously, like, especially at West Coast, we have a lot of travel that we do prior to games and stuff. Like this year, we had to go to Sydney, Brisbane, and Melbourne a couple of times. So, you can't really be too structured because obviously when you're on the road, there's different schedules and stuff that you have to adhere to. So I try just to go for a bit of a dip the day before. So obviously when I'm in Australia, it might be at the beach, but then here I have a local well, St. Patrick's Well. So it's actually religious as well. So I think there's a bit of magic in the water, but that's where I'd kind of head here. It's like natural springs and it's freezing. So good for recovery. So I try to do a bit of a dip maybe the day before just to kind of freshen up a little bit, feel like I'm fresh from that. But other than that, no, probably just eat chicken and pasta before the game.
Chicken and pasta?
The night before, obviously. Chicken and pasta, yeah. The night before, obviously, if it's an early game or like if it's lunch or whatever, have chicken and pasta, yeah.
So you put with salt, like you just make chicken and like grilled the chicken and then have it in the pasta. How do you cook it? In the sauce?
Just like boil, like I can either like oven or grill the chicken and then basically boil the pasta and then just use like tomato based sauce. Just have pasta, chicken and tomato based sauce. I don't know, is that a Irish thing or
no.
It's pretty much a standard meal that you have over here anyway pre-game.
Yeah. Well, hopefully none of my Italian relatives are listening to that.
Oh yeah, it's fairly don't put a lot of it's not probably the nicest. Like obviously you can't be putting the cream and the bit of wine and all that into the sauce. So yeah, it's just pretty much pretty plain, but gives me the nutrients I need, I guess, to go out and play.
Yeah. Do you have any, like, you have a pre-game playlist that you like to listen to at all, or is it just you playing around with your mates before the game?
No, just playing around. Usually Michaela Bone or Bear or someone like that has something going in the dressing room. So just kind of chat out with girls, go out, do a few skills and do mindfulness with Jan Cooper.
Yep.
A good bit before games. That's probably one of the things that I've got big into this year. Other than that, no, just pretty chill. Just try to not be too nervous and think too much about it. Yeah.
So what is that mindfulness? What does that involve?
A lot of the time it's just breathing control. I guess just bringing the heart rate down, trying not to be thinking about it too much and just bringing your thoughts back to the present. Often you can get carried away with yourself before a game thinking, what if this happens, and but the game hasn't been played yet. So it's just about bringing yourself back to the moment in time, calming the breathing down a little bit. And then visualization is something else that we kind of tried during the week as well, leading up to games. You might visualize the ground you're at, who you're playing against. I suppose my role, I might visualize ball ups or center bounces and maybe winning the ball or doing what I'm meant to be doing at that particular time. So it can often then, the more you replay it in your head, when you get to that moment in a game, you feel like you've already done it.
Yes.
So I think there's a lot of science behind it. But I have to get a bit more into it. I suppose it's kind of takes a little bit. So this year is probably the first year I took it that seriously like that.
Yeah.
So I've kind of probably at the beginning of my mindfulness journey, but I'll definitely work closely with Jan again this year and kind of take it up a notch or two. But I think, it's become a really important part of the game as well to train your mind as well as your body. So I find it really beneficial just for my nerves. And as well, like it can help in your everyday life, doing it before you go to bed to help sleep better, and stuff like that. So yeah, it is something that I found beneficial, and a lot of the West Coast girls do it, and Jan's been brilliant to help in that side of things.
I can definitely attest to the whole visualization aspect, because one of the things I do a bit of Muay Thai martial arts training, and one of the biggest kind of flaws I had in my game was that I'm too square, like I square up a lot, so my center is very easy open to get kicked in the stomach, and it's not the nicest feeling to get constantly kicked in the stomach. It just takes the wind out of you, right? So I did before we start training, we do a lot of shadow boxing, and I was just constantly for almost 2 minutes straight, I'll be practicing the kind of the anticipating someone kicking me in the stomach, and then working on my counter. So I'll like sweep the hand to push the kick away, and then I'll counter with a kick, and I'll just constantly rep that out, do a million reps, just practicing the movement, visualizing someone actually kicking me, doing it in the mirror so I can see how my body position works. And then had a little hit out sparring match couple last week, and thankfully he attempted 2 kicks. He landed 1 kick on me, and then the second one I ended up sweeping or catching his leg and then kicking his other leg away. So worked out that visualization worked in that moment. So I can attest to
Yeah, no, I
how
definitely
powerful that
think
works.
it does work, but obviously not straight away. Like that's obviously took you practice as
Yeah,
well. So
100%.
I think it can be frustrating as well. Doing like that mindfulness training. It can take a little while before you see the benefits. I think it does take a bit of time.
Yes.
So yeah, I think just kind of sticking to it and kind of trusting the process is really important. But then moments like that, you do feel like it actually benefits you. But like, yeah, it does take a while, I think, to practice.
For sure. Yeah. It wasn't just I did it for 2 minutes. It was every training session I did before actual training. You do your shadow boxing, and it's just thinking about what your opponent's going to do, what your weaknesses, what you need to work on. It's just constant practice. And that's kind of crazy about a little bit about martial arts and how much kind of mindfulness and visualization actually plays a part, was that martial artists do end up having that kind of internal monologue a lot. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, especially it's like, you're by yourself really out there as well. So I suppose a lot your mind can get you a lot, like, you're in your own thoughts. So I think definitely for that type of sport, being strong minded and is really important, just not to get, I suppose, carried away in your own thoughts and self doubts and stuff.
The mindfulness training is also interesting as well, because it brings your heart rate back down and kind of takes away that anxiety to kind of, do you feel it allows you to be more free flowing when you go out and play?
Yeah, and I think, I've learned a lot about like stress versus anxiety. I suppose stress is kind of nearly a good thing on your body. It does kind of get the adrenaline going, and obviously there's nothing better than getting out and playing with your teammates. So that kind of a stress to your body is actually good for performance. But then anxiety is that kind of what if, thinking things that mightn't actually come to fruition, and maybe doubts and stuff like that. So that actually hinders your performance. So I think the mindfulness just helps, to bring you back to the present, calm everything down, and just get those thoughts of to float away any doubts and stuff that you're having about your performance. So I think, what I've learned is that it's good to be a bit nervous and maybe have a little bit of stress on your body, because obviously that's kind of getting you primed for the game. But then it's that kind of anxiety factor that you need to kind of get rid of, as that can hinder your performance. So I've been learning to kind of strike that balance between having those kind of butterflies and being a bit nervous and just giddy and wanting to get out and play and perform. And then like that's kind of a good thing. And then obviously not having too much energy or wasting too much energy in the warm up. That you kind of are flat nearly by the time you get to the game. So I've kind of been trying to strike that balance. I think mindfulness definitely helps just to calm everything down a little bit, and just get you thinking where you are at this moment in time, that you have to keep everything a bit more calm, cool and collected before the first bounce.
Do you, now that obviously you're back home, do you use the Headspace app at all? Do you have any mindfulness apps that you use to kind of, I don't know, you might use it before bed or just during the day at all?
Yeah, so Smiling Minds
Yep.
is one that we use. So yeah, I use that a bit. And then Jan's actually been pretty good. She has some voice notes that she's put into our WhatsApp group throughout
Oh,
the season. So sometimes I go back to them, especially about visualization and stuff like that. And then we're lucky enough to have a psychologist come with our tip team this year too. So do a little bit of practice there as well. But yeah, Smiling Minds is probably the one I use the most. I needed kind of to have a guide. I'm
yeah.
not too good to do like self meditation or self mindfulness. I need a bit of a guide. So yeah, I kind of use apps or even just a bit of breathing control on YouTube and stuff. Yeah, so not too technical, but yeah,
No,
I kind of
but
change it up a little bit. Yeah.
that's perfect because apps, I guess, it just kind of makes it easier on you. I guess you just kind of, you didn't have to think of it yourself. I guess it's just guided, so you feel like there's someone with you, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, it's just easier, less to think about,
Yeah.
and still get your practice in, but don't have the kind of, I suppose, stress of trying to think of what to do yourself. So it just takes that element out of it.
Now, unfortunately, you finished the season with a knee injury. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, I had
Yes.
two knee injuries this year, so
Oh goodness.
yeah, I missed in the Sydney game against Giants. I hurt my left knee. A girl fell into the side of it, so just kind of had bony bruising and stuff. So I missed the Gold Coast game, which was obviously a superb day for our club getting the first win of the season. So I was obviously disappointed from a personal level, but brilliant
Oh
to see the
no.
girls get the win.
Yeah.
But then I was back the week after. Um, so it was a Fremantle game in Optus. So that was brilliant, obviously, to play in Optus.
Yeah.
But obviously, very disappointing result. And then the seventh game of the season, 2 minutes into the Richmond game, I kicked the ball and a girl kind of ran through my leg. And
Oh,
yeah, I did a grade 3 lateral ligament injury. So missed the last two games of the season then. So yeah, that was disappointing, and I'm still on my rehab journey at the minute.
jeez.
I'm not back fully fit, so yeah, it's over
Jesus.
4 months since I hurt it. So yeah, it's been slow,
Wow.
but improving steadily.
Do you? So how long has that been then? That's been almost 3 months, more than 3 months.
For over 4, yeah, the 20th of March, I think, is the date that I hurt it. So yeah,
Oh no.
um, yeah, but look, yeah, it is what it is, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I find having that balance outside of sport really important.
Oh yeah.
Through the pandemic, obviously, like March 2020, sport got taken away from us for quite a while, and then obviously this year, I haven't been able to represent Tipperary in our matches there in the last few months. So that's been tough, but I've been able to strike that balance of doing my rehab and being involved in the team environment, but having like my physio on like outside of that, and like meeting up with my friends and having my family and stuff as a support network. So I think it's made me learn that sport isn't everything as well. Although I've got a lot from it, and it's a big part of my life. That it can get taken away through injury or different things. So you need to have other things in your life that are important, and I've learned that over the past few months as well.
So where along are you now in the timeline? Have you started back running?
Yeah, back running in the last I say it's 4 or 5 weeks, and yeah, back doing
That's
pretty
nice.
much everything at training, just
Oh, that's good.
bit modified still,
Yeah.
just for load and stuff. But yeah, pretty much doing contact and that, but just kind of limiting the minutes I'm exposed to contact, I suppose, just to
Mhm.
ensure I don't pull up too sore. And then potentially we've another game with Tipperary on the 14th of August. So potentially trying to get maybe a bit of game time under my belt then, but
Oh,
not really
fingers
too
crossed.
sure. Yeah, just it'll be another box ticked on my road to recovery.
Mm.
But yeah, just getting fit and sharper now are the main things as well, heading into pre-season with West Coast.
Well, that's hope. Fingers crossed that you can get back. It's all those types of injuries are so hard because you can't help can't not stop someone falling across your leg and pulling your knee the other way.
Yeah, I suppose that's like the reassuring thing was they were both contact injuries, as in a way, like I wouldn't have been able to prevent them happening. Whereas obviously the non-contact injuries are probably a bit more harder to take because, you know, your knee just falls in for no reason really, and often it can be unlucky or you know, things like that. So at least when I look back at mine, it's not something that, you know, I wasn't doing enough strength and conditioning, or I wasn't, you know, I did too much that week or anything like that. It was basically an accident with people falling into my knee. So there's not a whole pile I would have been able to do.
Do you have any your least favorite gym exercise?
Nordics, I think. Yeah.
I think that's almost everyone's.
Yeah, they're pretty bad.
Yeah.
But I actually started to weirdly half enjoy them during my rehab. So I did testing about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and that was one of the things I got tested in. Yeah, and then I got tested again there last week, and you know I was actually pretty good at them. So I kind of was half enjoying them, but they're pretty evil.
They are deadly. It's just a practice thing with those. It's just you're gonna have to keep grinding. It's always sometimes like I have a few of our male guys here at the footy club. They can actually go like they could do concentric Nordics. They go all the way down. They can pull themselves back up.
And back up.
Yeah, it scares me because it's just there. Like they have very strong hamstrings, and it's just like I'm not too sure. Sometimes like they're almost too strong for their own good.
Yeah.
Because they can produce so much force out of those hamstrings and almost be prone to injuring them.
Too much, yeah.
But do you have anything, or have you ever wanted to try something or do something, but you were too afraid to try?
That's an interesting question. Not like I suppose I've always kind of thrown myself at sport and like even taking up the opportunity to play AFL. I was obviously scared to do that, but I did it. But no, I suppose just something I've learned over the pandemic, having so much time I had not having sport, was just to try out new things. So I was kind of like cooking and baking and stuff.
Yeah.
I hadn't really traveled before, I guess. And maybe if I didn't play AFL, I wouldn't have done it really too much just because of sport and stuff at home. So I don't really know. No, there's not really anything in particular that I'm too scared. I feel like I'm quite open to new opportunities and trying things out. So
you said something interesting. You said that you were obviously you were scared to come over to like you nominated for the draft. You made yourself vulnerable, I guess, and put yourself out in a position to come to Australia and be away from like your network, your family and all that, where I kind of guess other people wouldn't. They'll kind of come away, or they'll kind of shrink in themselves and kind of seek that comfort. Do you kind of want to make yourself vulnerable and kind of see what you can do almost?
Yeah, definitely. And like, you know, I didn't have to take up that opportunity. Obviously it's been a brilliant one, but I could have been quite comfortable at home playing Gaelic football and trying to be the best version of myself as a Gaelic footballer. But I put myself outside my comfort zone, joined basically a completely new sport and against pretty elite athletes in this sport as well. So definitely it's something that pushed me. Definitely I was very vulnerable, and but I think it's enabled me to definitely grow as a person, but as well as an athlete, and just pick up those little nuggets of information, being in such an elite environment that I can bring back to Gaelic football. But I look back to my first year playing AFLW, and it came to round one, and like I wasn't selected, and that probably was a real tough blow. I'd moved my whole life obviously to Melbourne to pursue this. My whole world probably revolved around playing AFL. You know, all my friends were the Western Bulldogs girls, who were my teammates. You know, my whole world was football, and then to not be selected that first round, I felt like my whole world had crumbled, and you know, the opportunity I'd taken to go out and play AFL was taken away from me. I wasn't given that opportunity to play that game. So then that's kind of the whole balance thing probably started then, where I needed to realize that, it shouldn't be my whole world while I'm here. I'm on the other side of the world. I need to, start seeing a bit more and meeting other people and stuff. So I think I learned a lot through that. And like the following week, I obviously let that moment process and was upset obviously for that moment in time when it came to selection. But I did put it behind me and prove myself at training. And the next week I got to play against Geelong, and I haven't looked back since. So, I do think everything happens for a reason. I learned a lot from that. But it definitely was a tough blow, and I had to kind of go to my support network at home, my friends and family, because obviously I didn't want to be too upset in front of my teammates who were my friends in Australia, and they obviously had to go out and play and perform that weekend. So I did find it tough that a lot of my friends were my teammates and my whole world was basically football. So I definitely had to rely on my support network at home.
That's a very unique perspective, like kind of so early on to have that awareness, I guess, to realize that, wow, I've got football's like this central cog and I've got nothing around me to support that.
Yeah, definitely. And like, I was a few months in Australia before that kind of moment happened. It came to round one and it felt like everything did fall apart. And, I was like, why am I here? I could have just stayed at home playing Gaelic football and, would have been a lot more comfortable. But I think, moments like that have made me grow. And I kind of now feel like anything that they throw at me or anything that sport throws at me or even in life, like I'm able to deal with it a lot better because of those types of moments. And even like being injured now as well, I've been able to deal with it a bit better because of things like that happening. So I definitely think sport gives you a lot of valuable lessons, not only for your sport but for life. And through things like that, I've definitely been very vulnerable. But I suppose vulnerability, I think, is a sign of good courage as well. So I think you kind of have to spin it in a different way. And I think there's a kind of a positive to everything. And it gave me an extra week to learn. I got to go to the match that year as an emergency, got to travel to Adelaide. So I got to see what it was like to be on the road with the team, what it was like to be in the dressing room beforehand and everything. So I think I learned a lot in that first game, even though I wasn't playing. And then I was really, really ready to play the following weekend. Whereas, it could have been a bit all overwhelming and I might have let that moment pass me by if I actually got to play that game. So when I look back, it actually had its advantages that I didn't play round one, and it was definitely a big learning curve to enable me to perform the week after as well.
Yeah, I guess that would have made it, using that as an advantage, like actually twisting it. It wasn't so much a disappointment. That was disappointing that you didn't make the round one team, but you got an extra week to kind of get the experience of what it's like to be on the road, be on the journey. That's kind of like, you turned into an empowering moment, I guess.
Yeah, and like it took me a while to look back and think of it like that. Definitely, it wasn't straight away, and like I was disappointed, but like having to, like getting to travel with my teammates, like I had to get over that disappointment fairly quickly as well. Which it helped. Whereas I suppose if I didn't get to go as the emergency that time, maybe I would have kind of wallowed in a bit more self-pity. But I remember then we actually had a VFL game that they wanted me to play, a practice game against Collingwood. So I think the match was a Saturday. So probably flew the Friday. The match was a Saturday, and then also we stayed the Saturday night. But I actually had to get an earlier flight home than the team. So I went with Paul Groves, the coach, back earlier. But when I landed in Melbourne Airport, like I had to get across to the Holden Centre in Melbourne, and I literally just got there like as the first bounce of that practice match. And like, a lot of things that day as well, I could have started feeling sorry for myself, didn't have optimum preparation. But I went out there and, got some game practice in and played well enough. And I think, I had a lot of excuses I could have used. But I think, over that weekend, I just learned a lot. And it's only now when I kind of look back at it, I think that really shaped me, mentally. And it's been really important in my growth as a player and a person.
Yeah, well, because it would be almost an easy out to say, oh, I didn't play so well because I had a poor kind of preparation leading into. I was stressed out because of the flight and traveling and that sort of stuff.
Like I could have had an easy excuse, but I would have known myself that they were just excuses. So I put everything to the side and just went out and enjoyed myself and played my first proper kind of practice game, I suppose, in VFL. And then that week got a Paul Groves was coming up on my phone as a phone call, and I was kind of dreading answering it. But luckily it was good news. And my journey in AFLW has kind of just been on the rise ever since. And I'm very lucky to have the coaches and environment that I'm in to enable me to get better each week.
That's good. Before we finish, I've got a couple of questions that we kind of ask or the guests before we leave. And I think this one, hopefully I can get a bit of a different kind of answer than the previous guests because of you have a different experience and you're international. But here's the question. If you had to choose 4 people to have dinner with, who would you choose?
That's interesting. I feel like I always get asked this question. I always answer different people for some reason. So I think I'd get Colm Cooper. He's a footballer that I looked up to when I was younger. So I kind of have someone sport, so we can chat a bit about sport.
Yeah, Colm Cooper.
Ed Sheeran. Think a bit of entertainment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who else? Probably someone like Michelle Obama as well.
Yep.
Just a bit of interest there. And then probably one of my friends like Roshan Howard. She's mad as a hatter, so she'd add a bit of fun as well to the table. So I think bit of a mixture there of
awesome.
sport, entertainment, and fun. So that's probably who I'd pick.
Ed Sheeran hasn't been up on the podcast yet. That's an interesting choice. Are you a fan of his music?
I do. I like his music. Think he can just get the guitar out easy enough, and
If he could serenade you all.
Yeah, definitely.
Where would you go? Where would you pick the place? What dinner would you have?
Oh, I'm a fan of Italian, or tapas as well. Just a bit of, can pick a bit of everything.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of tapas.
Yeah.
I don't like sharing my food.
Yeah, I suppose if you're hungry, you wouldn't really like that. But
I guess it's probably
I kind of like though not having to fully invest in one dish, because then obviously if you're disappointed or have food envy of someone else, so it can often be a nice one just to share.
I guess it's probably optimal too if you want to have like a good chat and you can share. You've got 4 people, you can share the dishes around, have a bit of a
more
chit chat.
Casual.
You get me ready. I'm hungry now for dinner. Last question. Last one. If money wasn't an object and nothing was impossible, what would you do?
Money was an object and nothing was impossible. I'd probably travel the world. Just go everywhere.
Where would your first place be? Your first destination?
I haven't been to America at all yet, so probably would head to America, and then Central America and South America are meant to be pretty nice as well. So so it'd be a mixture of kind of like backpacker style, but then also like living it up in the nice like cities and stuff like that as well. So bit of an adventure. But
would you have one of where would you start in America? That's probably the next question.
Probably start big, so maybe like fly to New York or something, and then go West Coast, like California, Las Vegas, all that.
Texas,
and then I feel like America is so big. I just
it's massive.
Don't even know. But I do kind of a road trip, and then probably go into like Mexico, and then down from there probably. But
that'd be cool.
I don't know. I haven't really thought about it too much, because I feel like with sport and the double life I'm living at the moment, Australia and Ireland is enough for now. So haven't really got that big plan done out.
It's very hard. It's very hard at the moment to plan for anything, is it?
Yeah, I think we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. Yeah.
Yes. So that question was brought to you by my Uncle Frank. He's sponsored that question. So he's an avid listener of the podcast. So shout out to Uncle Frank. Thank you for sponsoring that question.
Hey, Frank. Thanks. Thanks for asking.
Now, obviously, because it's the Olympics, I haven't done a podcast since the Olympics started. Have you been following it at all? Have you had any interest in watching it?
Yeah, I guess like obviously Irish interest in a few of the athletes over there. So yeah, it's been tough enough. Just obviously I'm working during the day, and then a lot of with time difference, a lot of the events are on at night. But yeah, Kelly Harrington is in the final on Sunday for boxing, lightweight boxing. So that'll be pretty cool to see. And there was 2 rowers as well from Cork that got a gold.
Yep.
So yeah, it's been nice just to see athletes. And there's actually a girl, Phil Healy, that I trained with a couple of years ago with her coach just for some speed training and gym stuff. Yeah. And she was in, I think she's the first Irish athlete to be in 3 events. So 400 meter, 200 meter, and then the 400 meter relay as well. So pretty cool just to say that I actually trained with her before. And she's so down to earth and everything. So it's been pretty cool to see people that you know on the biggest stage of it all. But yeah, the Australians have been doing super in the swimming, and yeah, so
it's incredible.
It's been cool. Yeah.
Do you have, I guess, an event that you think even if you tried, you still couldn't do it? Like, I guess everyone can kind of swim and everyone can ride a skateboard, but like, is there one event that you think that not even if I tried, I could even do it?
I think the diving, I'm scared of heights, so I wouldn't be able to jump off. Or to be honest, the skateboarding yesterday when I was watching that, like, was pretty extreme. The flips and stuff. So but the diving, definitely, I just get stage fright, so I wouldn't even.
How high? Like, is it what's the limit of your height? Your phobia of heights?
Like if I'm on a pretty safe place, like there's a barrier between me and the drop, like I'm fine.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's more that kind of on the edge.
Yuck. Yeah.
I get a bit dizzy and just like won't be able to like actually jump. But yeah, it's not like extreme, like I suppose my fear, but yeah, it would hinder me from being able to dive off a board.
That's crazy. It's like, do you feel like it's paralyzing? Like you can't move at all, or is it just don't even want to go close to the edge?
Yeah, I probably find it even hard, like walking out on the board to the edge.
Oh, yuck.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's come to the end of the episode. Ash, thank you very much for joining me. Do you want to, I guess, before you go, do you want to shout anyone out? Do you want to say anything to anyone?
I'll shout out to all my West Coast teammates, I guess. I think they're training away with Academy at the minute and waiting for preseason to come along. So hopefully they get out to everyone soon, and looking forward to getting back to Perth. And thanks a million for having me. Really enjoyed the chat.
All right. We started off with some technical difficulties, but we got it sorted, and pleasure to chit chat with you, and hopefully not too long I can actually have you in the studio.
Yeah, sounds good. And best luck with all the rest of your podcasts. Really enjoyed being a guest.
Awesome, mate. Thank you very much.
Thank you.